Mark, hello, good morning.
Well, you must be down, and good morning to you and your viewers,
Okay.
as they say.
Yes.
You must be down in the fairest of Cape at the mining indaba. It looks like everyone pitched up. It's the
Yeah,
skull price,
it's just
Tim, or
incredible.
what's going on?
Yes,
What's happening there?
there's mining, to put it bluntly, is sexy
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
which is very nice. And the mining people at the mining conference are just flocking in and are very happy about it, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine there's a boisterous mood about. Well, I hope we're going to harvest some of our ore and beneficiate and do all of those things instead of just taking all of this enthusiasm and turning
Right.
it into another series of exploratory long-term thingies. Let's harvest a bit. We need some cash. We need some
I
cash.
know.
I mean, moving off the indaba per se, although I can get back to it, there's all these things about restructuring Eskom and restructuring this and doing that. And one of the inhibitors that people are starting to understand is that when you are deeply in debt, your shareholders are not in charge. Your
Right.
creditors are.
Oh,
And so
yes.
we as a
Oh, that's
country
interesting.
are shortly going to be ruled by our creditors. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not saying whether
Good
they
point.
wouldn't do a better job than the incumbent shareholders, but that's what happens when you owe money. The creditors make the decisions, and that is going to skew what otherwise might be virtue and bespoke solutions to South Africa. Anyway, what else have we
Right.
got from the indaba before we get off that?
No. It's fascinating how much enthusiasm, high commodity prices inject into the
Yeah,
world of
yeah,
miners. I mean,
yeah.
everybody's walking
It's
around
like
with a little bit of a quicker step. It's fun.
it's like free drinks, pitch up, free
Yeah,
drinks. That's
yeah.
it's the sort of thing. Oh well, I look
No,
forward
but
to it because
and I mean, typically in South Africa, it takes us to take a great situation and mess it up. But one of the things that came out yesterday that I was interested in was just exploration spend. I mean, exploration is the first step in the whole process of creating a mine, right? Very
right.
obviously, it's the riskiest, it's the trickiest, it's crucial. South Africa doesn't have a very active, junior miner sector, which is, a consequence of having some very big mining companies dominating the kind of mining scene for so long.
Mm.
But, Australia and Canada have these, extraordinary 50, 60 just sort of junior miners digging holes in the ground, trying to see what's there. But this spend in South Africa used to be around about 5 billion rand a year. It's now down to around about 600 million. And it's very worrying. I mean, it is truly a concern.
No, everyone's left. Everyone's gone. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
all of
yeah.
our big
Yeah,
mining
exactly.
houses have left the room, left the building. And so we've got to
Yeah,
bring them back with all sorts of other things beyond the price. We've got to look again at regulatory issues, at shareholder issues, at geopolitical issues, and so on. Because, you can do things from afar nowadays. I remember back in the day, there was a company
yes.
called FredEv that was listed on the stock exchange, Free State Development Company, which was kind of well known for its exploratory enthusiasm. So it used to be quite a nice chip to play with
Right.
as a proxy for, excitement. Anyway, I hope they come back and I hope we dig our holes because
Yeah,
it's always been a natural advantage and we should exploit it a little more. Instead of
yeah.
borrowing money, we should borrow against the future production at the price of that future production and we'd lower our cost of debt, blah, blah, blah. It's all obvious. Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. Okay. Now,
Okay.
talking about loans.
Yes. Okay.
There was great furore about us joining Afri-Exim Bank, which is a long name for Afri-Exim Bank. And the only reason we celebrated them joining them, and I didn't know what joining them meant until I realized that we'd just taken 177 billion loan from them, rand.
Okay.
And so how do you make a bank successful? You pile on its assets because a small return on its assets is a leveraged return on its equity. So why did we befriend them, or are we going to take anybody's money at any price?
Well, I think it's as you say. It's that the problem about being ruled by your debtors rather than your creditors is that, or the other way around, depending on
your
which it
creditors
is.
rather than your shareholders.
Your
Although
debtors, yes.
in our country, the debtors also rule. They don't pay.
Yes. No, this is true.
Yeah.
But if you are being ruled by your creditors, then the problem is that the creditors want to be larger creditors. One of the things that they really like about being creditors is they can leverage their position to become even bigger creditors. So maybe that's what's happening here.
Well, little do they know that we are prepared to do creditor compromises despite the fact that we're state-owned entities. So pass up, but anyway,
Yes.
yeah.
Can I ask you a sort of banking question? You know that there's this controversy about Eskom splitting up into its different into a kind of production function on the one hand and a distribution function on the other. So now the department is arguing that should they do this, a whole bunch of Eskom's debt will suddenly become immediately due. Is there no way to get around that problem?
Of course there is.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I mean, there's always a way, man. So first of all, there'd be some clause in or some covenant or some trigger in the loan agreements which says if you ever split us up, in other words, if you impact on our immediate security for the loan, we have the right to call the loan. Okay. Well, help yourself. Try and call the loan, but okay, help yourself. Get yourself a big tug of war team and try and pull the loan. Have a nice day. First of all. Second of all, of course, when you move things about within an ecosystem, you can't create or destroy value. It's a closed system. Okay, it's only once you take things out of an ecosystem, and if you do that and you do so at fair market value, again, you haven't changed the nature of the security. You might have changed the access to cash flows, but then you would have been paid for them if you took the entity out and so on. It's a complex subject, but the short answer is creditors, lenders love lending money. They just want to know they're going to get it back.
Yeah.
But if they're bleating only because they want better terms or because they want to increase their exposure. So, and if it's an organ of state, there's the good old government guarantee, which is usually the umbrella for most of these entities that are not bankable on their own. So that's a red herring, in my view.
Oh, interesting. Thanks for that. Can we change the topic completely? Because I happen to notice that you wrote a very controversial and interesting piece, very cogently argued, that we should all go and be public servants. And I would like to make a suggestion, if you don't mind.
I can't wait. You're moving to Mars. Someone said that'll work on Mars. Yeah.
No, my suggestion is, why not the other way around? Instead of people who are working for the private sector or potentially working for the private sector, going to work for the public sector for a certain amount of time, what about people who are working in the public sector going to work in the private sector for a bit? Wouldn't that be a good idea? Wouldn't that be actually more educative than your suggestion?
Yeah, well, first of all, the private sector won't take them. The reason that they won't. Why would they? And the public sector might have to take them as a strategy to resurrect our economy and unemployment and various other things. I mean, in a nutshell, what I'm saying is not national service like military national service, although our army could do with a bit of help. But for everyone, when you leave school, when you leave university, whatever you do, if you go and do some national service, doctors do it, accountants do it, actuaries have to write international exams and so on. And you get an exposure to the real world. But you can do it straight after school, you can do it whatever. Imagine you haven't got a job, so you have to go and work for the government for 6 months or 2 years, and you go fix the railways, working on the railways. Okay, and so the government has the wherewithal to create such programs as a feeder to the private sector and creating a better qualified and more employed population, which the private sector then takes from them. Having said that, this is not, this is not pitiful in a way. This is world class. This is build the best hospitals with taxpayers' money, the best, better than the private sector. And so that everyone wants to go there, and so that we have this natural attraction that might have to have a bit of nudging to get it going. And we have the strongest, cleverest, government. Now, imagine that you end up with the strongest, cleverest government. There's a bit of a journey in that.
Yes.
Feeding the private sector. So, Tim, I don't think it's about which way you do it. It's about giving people a focus and a national common interest, which is them and which makes us a better qualified workforce, which makes us a stronger economy and competitive. Yeah.
You know, I can
But you
see
see,
your
you're
argument,
judging
but
this.
would you mind if I just argued against you for a second?
It won't be the first time or the last.
Yes, yes. I mean, the first thing is that accommodating such a large number of people is inevitably going to be difficult. And then consequently, you instead of deploying them with force and vigor, you end up with a whole bunch of people who are not learning the best about how to serve their country, but the worst about how to serve their country.
Oh, rubbish, man!
Because
we have
because
rubbish.
Because imagine what would happen. Let's say we take the engineering class of 2026 and send them to go and work for the government. What do they learn there? They learn that actually the way to survive in government is to do nothing. That's the best thing to do. Because there's the accountability system in government just isn't the same as the accountability system in the public
government. Sector. Really, go and check what the accountability system's like in China in government. Okay? Go and see whether you can go there and do nothing. Okay, I'm not looking for that. But here's the thing. Okay, no, I'm not looking for that. But Sana, we got the best engineering teachers in the world and in South Africa to go and teach those people. And the capital, we would find, you'd get a tax deduction as the private sector if you part-funded the new school of railroad technology or whatever it might be. No, you are making assumptions based on the status quo. We must forget about the status quo. It's not working. We must forget about the government mindset that prevails. It's wrong. We've got to change that mindset and recognize that if the center doesn't hold, the private sector will fail or leave. What we've got at the moment is a center that's not holding. Okay, it's falling to pieces.
You're not getting me entirely, because what I'm arguing is not based on the current status quo. What I'm arguing is about the incentive systems, the differential incentive systems in the public and private sector. No, there will. There always is. Almost always is.
Make the exception. Did you not read what I wrote? It says this, and I'm a bit enthusiastic, forgive me. It says, have outcome-based incentives. Have outcome-based incentives. Have bonus schemes better than the private sector. Why not?
Right.
If I said to you, we want to change as a team, let's do something ludicrous which you can't really influence. We want to change GDP up by 1%. If you do that, the bonus pool is X. Okay.
Right.
And we change how we think about government. We don't think about government. We think about pools of expertise and feeders into the real life economy. And so everything has to change. Hierarchy rules have to change. I said that. Stop worshipping hierarchy and qualifications. Worship output, worship achievement. And if you do that, you can either go and work for the government or Apple. You'll get the same remuneration if the system works that I'm proposing.
I mean, people often use China as an example of a sort of government system that works, but this is absolutely not true. It's based on a sort of like it's based on a sort of notion of China which it doesn't exactly exist. First of all, China has a completely different history, which goes right the way back to Confucianism about how government should operate. But the Chinese system is extremely based on free markets. There's an assumption because there is something, that there's a sort of limited democracy, very limited democracy in China, that it's basically a state-run system. It's not. And you can see that it's quite a brutal capitalistic system because there are periods of enormous oversupply in China, and that comes from very, very, very intense competition. So just to return to my original point, which is I appreciate and I see your argument about changing the kind of nature of what is considered good work in the public sector, but I still think that there is an innate difference in the accountability systems, which is absolutely inevitable. And you can see it almost in every government system around the world. What do you say to that? Yes.
Then we are, this isn't an adult program, but I'll describe in one word the outcome of that. That's where we're heading. It is because we resign ourselves to the notion that government are useless and that government can't attract talent and that government this and government that. Because it's a democracy, we get lowest common denominator outcomes and so on. But let's take Singapore as a government example, okay?
Right.
What did they do that's so wrong in terms of creating capital and economically flourishing? There are checks and balances here, Tim, because we've got to make sure. But if you left school and they gave you a little test and they said, actually, you're quite good with a hammer and nails. You're going off to carpentry, it's compulsory carpentry national service, and you're going to help build bridges. Okay, well, I'm making this up.
Right.
Okay. At least you've got something to do and you're developing a skill. And we've got to, I tell you what prompted me, Tim. Every time we examine something deeper, it looks worse. I haven't found an exception to that rule in the last 5 years. Okay. When you look under Joburg water, you go, it's much worse than we thought. When you look at, I know we've solved load shed, but I don't yet know why. How?
Yes.
Did we build new power stations? No. Did we? Is it off grid? Are we using a whole bunch of diesel? Are we? And why does no one pay for it? I mean, the next mindset you have to get into is what is the appropriate legal system for our complicated demographic and social economy? And so we have to make this thing ours. You have to when you're sitting at table with your 14-year-old son and he's going,
right.
What are you going to do? I don't know what to do, Dad. I said, don't worry. When you finish school, you're going to government school, a government appy school. And so just shut up and go there. And the parents will be too grateful to kick the little spoiled brat off his iPad and onto the bloody workforce. No, we need a little bit of that. Okay, enough of that, Tim. Enough. I don't know. I just think as you say, it'll raise the debate, because we are borrowing money and taxing an ever-decreasing population ever more much. That's a proper English for you. I should go to English school.
Can I just tell you what the one thing I really like about your idea is the changing the nature of the bonus system in government. Because at the moment, the bonus system in government is based on, so you get a bonus in government if you facilitate more legislation, and consequently we've got lots of legislation which just goes nowhere, and does terrible things. We've got legislation on the books at the moment that you can't smoke near an exit, 10 meters from an exit.
So I've got to beep you there because you said this for 3 episodes so far. We know your thing about smoking, okay? Because there are no exits in here. Yeah, we know the thing. Come up with a new example, for goodness sake. Yeah, but I mean, okay. So I agree. So imagine if you had, I know the chief executive of one of our leading banks, who will remain nameless, but he was there 10, 20 years ago, and he used to call a meeting every now and say, tell me which of our rules we must cancel. And that became one of the most successful banking groups in South Africa. And so tell me what has to change. Don't tell me, and talking about change, let's move off the subject. I read somewhere else that it is plastic surgery season in the US. You know why, Tim?
No.
Because it's winter. And if you want that plastic surgery to heal before you hit the beaches of Miami, you better do it now. You see, there's planning in everything. And so my advice to anyone considering plastic surgery is don't. We can see it.
Oh, really? Have you had some, Mark? I mean, I have to say, it hasn't really worked that well. I'm just saying.
No, I'm glad. Yeah, at least this is mine, and it doesn't have to get woken up in the morning with an electric shock. Okay. What else have you got there, Tim? You're in the middle of the exciting world over there. Thousands of people there.
Yes. No. Can we just turn to the sort of international to political issues just for? Because I have another question for you.
Goodness.
Because you're a business person who's worked in government. There's this rumor going around about Patrice Motsepe possibly becoming the next president. What advice would you, or do you think it's a good idea for business people to adopt, or to think about or consider political careers. What
No,
advice would you give? Oh, okay, simple
no.
enough.
And I'll tell you what, and they
Why?
all do it because power is a step, at least one or two steps above money. Okay, so once you've
Right.
got more money than you can imagine, the next thing you want is power and influence. Well, you've
Right.
got some of that already. What I would suggest to successful business people is stay in your lane, keep your independent mindset, and advise
Right.
those duly elected officials rather than become one of them. Okay,
Okay.
because then we've lost one of your skills. Okay, if you're a good business
Yeah.
person, stay there. Okay,
Yes.
and don't yearn after presidential or other accolades. Just stay there and keep building the economy and live. Yeah, no. So the answer is no. I don't think it's a good idea. You've
I
got
mean,
influence
I,
already. You're a specialist. Stay there.
I mean, South Africa doesn't have a great history of business people becoming presidents or becoming involved in government.
Well, you
And I
have
think it's
to.
because,
Yeah.
as you say, the structures are so different, and
Um,
you just don't have the same kind of power and authority. Even though you are powerful, you don't have that kind of iron grip on the, or the kind of a militaristic hierarchical
yeah.
system in government. It's all about negotiation and talking and convincing and
Pop- it's all about
cajoling and
populism.
yeah.
Popular, I mean, some of the most successful chief executives and built the most extraordinary empires aren't popular. They're just
Right.
successful. They're pretty
Yes,
damn
that's
focused at making money. I'm not lauding them. I'm just
right.
saying
Right.
they know what they do and they do it well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
Okay.
wouldn't do that.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Well, Mark, let's maybe we should draw a line under that, and I can go back to my
Indeed.
exciting mining conference,
And
and you can advise me on things.
okay, and we're all looking forward to Sona. Sona's on Thursday. We haven't
Oh
talked
yes,
about
no,
that.
we're very excited. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Sona, we've got last year's checklist. Some of the things
Yes,
have improved.
yes.
And we've got
Okay.
promises. And I hope that two are different or the one is more actually. Anyway, we'll wait and see because this week it's Sona. In a couple of weeks it's the
Right.
budget. Eish, February. And it's got
I
Valentine's
know.
Day in the middle. It's a challenging month. Have a
No, it
nice
is.
week, people. Cheers.
Have a good time. Cheers. Thanks for listening.
Bye. Bye now.